Our next guest is the CEO of SecureKey. Greg Wolfond is the founder. He's got 30 years experience in various pieces of fintech security, mobile solutions. He previously founded, he's a serial entrepreneur. He founded Footprint Solutions, a financial services company he sold to IBM. And previous to that, 724 Solutions, which he took public. He was named Canada's Top 40 Under 40. He was named an Entrepreneur of the Year. Please join me in welcoming Greg.
Okay, well, thanks, Amanda. Thanks for having me here. The talk's kind of different in this light of payments and things, why identity matters. So, you know, the right topic probably to talk about is the 1.5 billion people in the world who don't have identity, who have no documents, who have no ability to access payment systems, who have no ability to get the rights and privileges we all have over here. But that's not what I'm going to talk about today, but that is a tragedy. I'm going to talk about North America. So North America, Canada in particular. Warren Buffett, when he was talking about himself, and if he were born somewhere else in the world, if he were born in India or someplace like that, said there's no way, not a chance, he could ever have created what he did over there, he did here. He actually said he's a member of the Lucky Sperm Club for where he was born. But that's kind of the view. I think we are lucky. The rights and privileges we have, the rule of law, the ability to have identity and to be able to have the innovations that we have. He talked about innovation in North America. I'm amazed at the opportunity we all have to be here and be doing the things that we're doing here that others in the world don't get to get elsewhere. I need the clicker thing, I think. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Oops. So when I talk about identity and I talk about innovation, this is the Tesla car, the self-driving car. Now they're saying it's driven 100 million miles. And I was lucky enough to drive one of these on a test drive last week. I don't know if any of you come from Toronto. I see a lot of you here do come from Toronto. But coming off the Don Valley Parkway onto the Bayview extension, put this on autopilot. It follows the curve, follows all those curves up by Loblaws all the way up, stays in its lane, knows when this car's beside you. If you turn on your blinker, it switches lanes. And it was an unbelievable experience. Like I marvel at the technology that's going into these vehicles and the kind of innovation that we're having over here. The one thing I'd say is that, you know, it's pretty interesting that our grandkids are probably going to say, actually, you owned your own car and you drove your own car. It's pretty clear that's what's coming. The only bad thing in that whole technological experience for me was my wife, who was sitting beside me, who said the car is actually a much better driver than I am. But this stuff is what's coming. So this next piece of innovation is an iPhone. I think most of you in the room, or a lot of you in the room, probably have it. But think about what's in this phone that we carry in our hands, right? So this phone is more powerful than a Cray supercomputer was way back when. It's way more powerful than the Deep Blue computer IBM had in 1997 when it beat Garry Kasparov at chess. It's about 32,000 times more powerful and faster than the computer that landed a man on the moon. And that computer, I think, cost about $3.5 million. And it has fingerprint sensor, it has a facial sensor, it's got voice and everything else. Look at the technology that's gone into this thing and where we're going in technology. And let's compare it to this chip, which is an EMV chip in our card that was developed in 1993, about 23 years ago, and what it does. And it hasn't changed very much since then. So you'll kind of see where I'm going in this technology and innovation and the rest of this. But if I come back to identity and things like that, we're in Canada, we have driver's license, we have passports, we have all kinds of identity documents. They work really well in person. Some of them are older, they come around for a long time. They don't work really well in a lot of the places we need to use them, which is online, on the phone, everything else. They're pretty good, like chip and pin works. I go in a store, I put in my card, it knows I've got my card, knows I've got my pin, that works. Doesn't work in a lot of other scenarios, so we have to solve that. So the real thing for everyone in the room, whether you're a merchant, whether you're a bank, whether you're anyone, is what we're really trying to solve for is this trade-off. And it's really a trade-off of cost, convenience, and certainty. Customers come in person to a branch, costs us a lot to service them in a branch or in a store. Not great for citizen convenience, but we really do know who the person is. If it's chip and pin, they can pay. If it's a bank and I'm opening an account, they can show a driver's license. Works pretty well. But customers want to come online, they want to come on the phone, in which case in online, pretty cheap, really convenient, but we're not really sure who they are, and we get lots of fraud. On the phone, it's even worse because it costs us more, and we still don't know who the customer is, but that's a problem that we have to solve broadly. And if you think about going back in time, This is payments, right? This is the 60s. I grew up 30 years in the business, right? That's a long time. Seeing these things go, we had the card, and you'd swipe the card with the knuckle buster machine, and they'd check the signature on the back, and they'd pull out that list to see if it was on the fraud list. And that's how they went, right? It was the card that I had and the biometric, which was my signature, and then we got mag stripe, so you could do it electronically and not check the lists. And then, oh, that wasn't strong enough, so let's put a pin on this as well, and that's not strong enough, so let's get an EMV chip on how we go. But it's all kind of the same things that we've been going through. It all comes back to the same things. It all comes back to what I know, what I have, what I am, right? So what I know you could think of in this card world is I know my PIN, I have my card, I have a signature, but it's more than that kind of stuff. It hasn't changed in 30 years since we've been around. We're just getting better technologies to solve these problems. So if I take the what I know pieces that we can possibly have around, there's passwords. All of us have passwords. I think international studies say the average person has about 130 passwords, and we all live with this when we go to merchant sites and everything else. It doesn't work where every site has its own identity stack. You know, enter your password. No, it needs an uppercase and a lowercase and a number. Okay, uppercase, lowercase, number. Oh, no, it's got to be 8 digits. No, that's not right. Okay, no, you need an uppercase and a lowercase and a special character. No, sorry, you used that password before. There's no, there's no way to kind of solve that one. It's just too hard a problem to do it. We can't. That's not a model that's going to work. PINs are great on a card, but as everyone in the payment industry knows, you can't enter a PIN on a computer. You can't enter a PIN on your phone, because if the bad guys get the PIN and they've got your card and a mag stripe, they can start taking money and things like that. And out-of-wallet questions, these things, when you call in, what's your mother's maiden name and all these kind of questions. A friend of mine who's one of the bank CEOs said, if we've got a customer on the phone and they can't answer the questions, it's probably our customer. Because the bad guys, they have a database, they're bang, 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 bang. So these are the challenges we're trying to solve. So this is a service that we have running up in Canada right now. I hope most of you are using this stuff. You go to the government, they have over 100 departments that you want to log into, and instead of saying you have to get a password for each department, come back to CRA next year and remember the uppercase, lowercase, number, letter, password that you had a year ago. You can go there, you can choose your financial institution, we redirect you there, you log in at your financial institution, you come back to government, and we make sure for privacy that the government never knows what bank you're choosing, and the bank never knows what you're doing. So we have to make sure for citizens that we have privacy in this stuff. We have 5 million Canadians who use this service. We're adding 300,000 users a month because people are saying, I'm done. I'm not adding new passwords and user IDs and everything else. And they're realizing that the bank password is different, right? If I asked everyone in this room, and I can't really see you at all, how many times you use the same password? Does anyone use the same password at more than one site? You know, every hand in the room will probably go up. And if I ask you, do you use your bank password at more than one site? No hands will go up because people know that it's different. There's frequency of use, and we trust our financial institutions to do stuff like this. So that's one example of how do you use a what I know that's really innovative. We don't think every merchant site should have its own password as an example. What I have factors. So I have cards, I have driver's license, I have passports and phones and things like that. Most of these work in person. They don't work really well online, right? You can't use them online very well. And the what I am factors, things like being able to check a photo on a document again in person, but the devices are coming now. They have fingerprint, they have iris, they have facial recognition. You're seeing FIDO Alliance for those of you in technology. These things are coming, but they're not there yet, right? Anyone who's logged onto your bank now using the new fingerprint stuff sees the warning, be careful, you're the only fingerprint on the phone, because if your daughter has her fingerprint on your phone, as mine does, that means she can put her finger on the button and she can transfer funds and do anything that you can do on the phone, which maybe not be exactly the right answer. And FIDO, the specification that's going broadly, is exactly the same. It's just, did someone do a biometric on this device? It's not you. But our push here is, you know, what if when Greg's registering, opening a new bank account at a bank, he could say, hey, do you want to share your driver's license with the bank? And it could ask you, hey, Greg, is it okay to turn on the camera and validate it's you against the provincial database that I know it's actually Greg to set up this account and go forward? What would happen if we started doing things like that? So identity, when we talk about identity, and in payments, we care about identity. This card is who I am, and I'm authenticating with what I know that I authorized this transaction. But it's not just payments, right? Identity is foundational to everything we do. It's foundational to, I want to see my medical records. I want to authorize the doctor to see this. I want to go to an apartment, and I want to become a new tenant. So prove who you are. Prove you've got a good credit score. Set up your automatic payments against paying. whether I'm going to government, whether I'm going to a bank, whether I'm shopping, you need identity first, and then we need the consumer to say, yes, I authorize this transaction. But if we don't solve identity well and make it easy to use and secure and usable, we're not going to solve payments in a great way, is our belief. So this is kind of what we're working on in Canada. We're working on the next version of Concierge. We think that solving identity requires the best capabilities of all parties. You know, we need government stuff to be able to check face. We need banks to be able to do passwords and PINs and things like that. We need to know what device you're on. And we need to be able to, in real time, verify and ask different things at different times. Hey, I'm not sure it's you. You're transferring $1 million. I'm going to turn on the camera. Hey, it's normal transaction. Put your finger on the button. I'm doing something new. I'm adding a payee. Enter your password just to prove you can control your bank account, things like that. So we've got a lot of partners in the provinces. We've got a lot of the banks that are signing up with us, telcos and others. And we're starting to try and think of what the next version is in this world of how do we really solve identity. But no one party, not the banks, not the merchants, not the government, not telcos can solve this on their own. We need to have a combined effort and an ecosystem on how you build that to make it work. So these aren't done yet. These are some examples of what we mean by things that could be used if you applied identity in the payment world. So you'll see some examples here. So this is a first example. It shows on the your left-hand side. On the very left-hand side, Greg basically posts online, hey, I'm doing Tour for Kids. Support me for $20 for Tour for Kids. We get these emails all the time. Troy over there clicks on that link and says, yeah, I want to support Greg for Tour for Kids. And he clicks on the link. And because the system knows identity, it knows who Troy is, it knows he's at Bank of Montreal, it launches his Bank of Montreal app and says, hey, Greg, do you want to pay $20 for Tour for Kids? Within the Bank of Montreal app, they can then choose. Does he want to use his savings? Does he want to use his checking? How does he want to pay? Any of these methods that he wants to be able to pay with, and all the authentication is within the banking app. Yeah, I want to pay. We think the banks can settle this. We're not in the payment stuff. We're doing the identity part. Hopefully by now they can. But the second part of that is the identity part, right? Hey, Troy, are you willing to share your name and address with Tour for Kids? And do you want to get a receipt and things like that? And do you want to update them if you move? These kinds of things start to happen, but we need customer consent to do that. But in the end, for a consumer, we think this is 2 clicks, right? Do you want to pay? Yes. Is it okay to share your name and address? Yes. As compared to, okay, I'm going to go to the Tour for Kids site. What's your name? What's your address? What's your email? Would you like a password? Uppercase, lowercase, number sign, all the rest. And putting your credit card, putting your CV number, it's too hard an experience. But this starts to streamline that kind of process is where we're going. Other examples that we've all lived, and we talked about payments before and writing checks. You get the note from your school that says, hey, can Annie come? We're going on a school field trip next week. Here's the permission form. Please fill in the form to say who you are, who your daughter is, and it's okay for them to go in the form and sign it. Send it back, and then, by the way, send us a check for $24. Because it's the only way to go. Why am I doing that? The bank knows it's me. Why can't I say, yes, I agree to the terms. Yes, she can go. I'm Annie's father. And yes, I agree to pay $24 to the school, and it's done, and it's 2 clicks. We have to make this secure. We have to make it private that users consent, and we have to make it really easy for consumers to use it, or they won't use it in the end. And this is kind of a third example of where we're going kind of thing, so I'll show you. If you look at the slide in the middle, it kind of says Verified Me, which is the branding stuff we're using on it. Think of TD Verified Me or BC Verified Me. We're kind of just a connector piece. But the whole idea here is I go to TD, I log on as I do with Concierge, I put in my username and password, and it says, hey, here's your attributes, Greg, your name, your address, your email. We're going to enable you to share these, always with your consent, and we're never going to share anything without your consent. Do you want to be part of the service? And I say yes. And then they say to me, hey, Greg, we want to validate your phone. Is it okay to share your name and phone number with a telco to validate that the app you have is really on that phone? So we go to the telco and we send that number, and it says yes. It comes back and says, yep, Greg, we know you're at TELUS. This is your number. It's 416, whatever your number is, and the app is on that phone. Really important to know we're on the right device. And now we've loaded the telco, said it's me. And we can go to things like TransUnion and load my credit score so I can do financing right on the spot there. And I can go to the government of BC. On the left-hand side, you see what we're doing with BC. You go into the kiosk, you tap your BC card, we check your face. They say, would you like to load your card into your phone? But before you load your card in the phone, they want to make sure it isn't a bad guy, Fred Smith, loading my card into his phone. So what they say is, hey, Greg, are you willing to share your name and date of birth from the app on your phone with the province? Yes, I am. Now we'll load the driver's license into your phone. Because we have the province working with the bank, working with the telco data, we're going to be really sure it is this customer on this phone. This is not just an email, and I hope none of you are getting the emails I'm getting now that come from someone who I think I know. When you click on the link, it's really not that person, because that's going to be a really big fraud vector we see pretty soon. But this stuff, really knowing identity and who we're dealing with, is going to be important. On the far side with the school district one there, you can see what BC's doing then next is they've loaded their card inside. I want to go see my daughter's school records. Is it okay to share your card with the school to be able to see records? Yes, I can. Put my finger on the button, and I can do that. But there's a bunch of use cases you'll start seeing that go around that. Imagine showing up at Rogers, and I want to get a new cell phone. I did this for my dad last week. 15 minutes, you're waiting in line. Then you've got to fill in the forms. Now I want to check credit on all the rest of the stuff. I should just be able to have my device. You want to share your name and address. You want to share your credit score. OK, how do you want to pay? Done. This is 2 clicks. This is not the way we're building stuff today, but we've got to think about it as a holistic experience for the consumer at the end. So I think identity is important, and I think there's ways to make it better than it is today. The existing systems, like the people in the government will say, we've got to make sure we maintain privacy. When you get a driver's license from the province and you're a kid, they don't ask me for my ID anymore, and you go places. The way you get into a bar is you show your driver's license. You have to show your driver's license. So the example that happened in Vancouver last week where a girl goes to a bar and she comes home and the bouncer's waiting at her door. Well, why is he waiting at her door? Because she's forced by law to show a document that says, here's my name, here's how much I weigh, and here's where I live. It's ridiculous, right? In this day and age, she should be able to say, okay, prove I'm over 19, pop a picture up from the state to say, here's my picture, you're in the bar. We can make this whole thing better if we work together to solve identity. So I love this stuff. I love technology and innovation. I love Teslas and all that. This isn't going to be ready. Like, this stuff is coming really, really soon. You're going to see it. I'm ready for it. I don't think everyone's going to be ready for it right away. There's an example of another woman who tried the Tesla Drive, as I did. So it is kind of funny. It is going to be that hard. But when you think about this stuff, she's hilarious, I know. But think about what's coming, right? BMW on their small cars, BMW on the big cars. In every car they're shipping now, they have the share feature. You can put your car on the street and people can start to borrow your car and take your car. And it's a really neat minimum viable product test that they're doing this today. But in reality, in order to share my car, I want to know that person has a driver's license. I want to know that they have a background check, that they're not a criminal. I want to know that it's them getting into the car. So how am I going to have them come up and say, yes, I'm willing to share my background check, my driver's license, everything else, and turn on the camera and make sure it's me to get in my car before they drive away in my $100,000 BMW? So it's nice that they talk about this stuff. And at the end, of course, there's a payment part of this that people probably want. Airbnb, all kinds of things, the same thing. So this is all coming really, really fast. I just think if we don't work together and solve identity as an industry, we're not going to be able to do the use cases that consumers are going to really care about. So that's why identity matters. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Greg. I think that video of, oh my God, where are we going, is that's going to stay with me. But I think mostly going good places. Including on identity and security, which is such a hugely important part of the puzzle.